Hi everybody, welcome back to Three Sisters Homestead. Today we are going to be going over our successes and fails from the last garden season. We're going to start off with the successes. I feel like we did spacing a lot better, and you agreed with that when we were making out our list. Instead of making our rows about a foot apart, I think we did about 1.5 feet. Or 2.
I think it might have ended up 2 foot.
Was that? Okay. But it ended up being a lot better that we could get in between rows to be able to harvest instead of trying to squeeze between them and knocking stuff off of the plant onto the ground or breaking the plants. We also interplanted celery in between our long 33-foot slicer tomato row, and we put the celery in between each one, and that worked out really well. Succession planting squash. We put squash in, again, one of our 33-foot rows, and some of them didn't really do much, like the scalloped squash, or scalloped. Is it scalloped or scalped?
I'm not sure.
I don't But, so we had planted them in that, and then the squash bugs were really bad this year, but the vine borer were. So those ones were starting to die off, and we saw that. So we planted more squash over by our little Three Sisters garden area. In each corner, we put a squash and then corn around it. So that worked out really well. The bean spacing was better this year, but it still was not perfect. But it was far better than it was the year before. We had done them in the square foot gardening method the year before, and we did 9 per square foot, and that was not good. It was really overwhelming, hard to get in there and harvest. So this year we did rows, and we put, I think it was 1 on each side, so it was 2 in a row, and there was 4 rows.
4.
4. I think it was 4. It was either 4 or 5, because there was 1 on each side and then 2 in the middle. And then behind the trellis, we also did some in there too, in like a little square, like an L shaped. We did like 2 rows in there. Of that 3.
That's the one I thought you were talking about.
No, I was talking about the one underneath the trellis.
Yeah,
but that was the one was like 2 or 3 rows, and we still did just 1 on each side of the row, so 2 going down each row. That was still I think a little overcrowded for my taste for harvesting, but it was far better. There wasn't any wasted produce. Anything that did not get eaten by a human got fed to the chickens. Maybe you could say that it got wasted because Archie kept pulling beans off the plant.
But he
ate it, so I don't really see that as being wasted. Dahlias. At the beginning of the season, I wanted to buy some bigger dahlia plants, but they were like $15 per plant. So I decided I was going to get these little 6-pack cells from Menards. They were $2.99 or $1.99 for a 6-pack cell. They were like the starts that were from seed that didn't have any tubers. And we planted those, and back here we took them out of the ground once it got cold and we knew the freeze was coming. We pulled them all up, and there were huge bulbs. Like they kind of look like fingers, and there's just a bunch of bulbs coming off of the plant. And we have 2 boxes full of them. So that really worked out well. Instead of buying a $15 plant, and we would have needed, like, I don't know, fill that area, 10 of them
probably
of those $15 plants. But that 6 cell, that was the $1.99 or the $2.99, whatever it was, and now those are $15 plants now that we'll be planting this next spring. Pesto. We had only made a couple batches of pesto. There's a gnat. Not this last season, but the season before, we had only made a couple batches of pesto. I think maybe 2.
Yeah.
2. And we were like, there's no way. Like, we have to make so much more of this because it's amazing. So we really upped our production on basil and parsley this past year. And we still have pesto in the freezer, and it's February. So we're doing really well with that too. Then learning to pressure can. Before last year, we were only water bath canning, and then we were freezing a lot of stuff as well. But this past year, we started to learn to pressure can, and it is not as scary as and intimidating as we thought it was going to be. Like, I actually quite enjoy it. It's fun. Then, more seedlings lived. We had a lot more success with our seedlings this year. Found more of a watering schedule and more air circulation in this room. I put a lot more fans in here instead of just one. I think we did 4 of them, and then the little fans that clip on the side of the shelf, I had a couple of those too, and it made it so much better. We didn't deal with dampening off like we did the year before, and then also we didn't have to up pot as many things. So when we up potted, that also had killed them the previous year, so that worked out a lot better not having to up pot this past year.
We had only bought a handful of plants. It was great. They were peppercini, dragon roll, and pineapple tomatoes because we wanted to try something a little different.
Yeah, we heard that, or I heard the pineapple tomato was really good from a friend of mine. He had told me that his parents only grow pineapple tomato now.
Jacob?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We had enough celery for canning to last just well, we might have had to buy one.
I think our last batch we bought one package, one what do you call that?
Bundle?
One bundle of celery. Yeah, one bunch. I think it's a bunch. Yeah, one bunch of celery.
And we still have onions in February.
Yeah,
We've grown a bunch.
Yeah, only a handful of them though, because when we made this list, it was last weekend, and then this weekend we did some more pressure canning, and we used up most of the rest of the onions, but there's still a few onions at their house.
Yep. And we definitely made enough spaghetti sauce, because we still have a bunch more than we thought we would.
Yeah. We thought that we wanted, what did we say? A jar
for each week.
Every week. But I think you guys just keep forgetting it's down there.
That,
because we're
we ate
using it like
twice a week for maybe a month.
Yeah, we've been eating it maybe once a month.
But and we're starting to learn how to do sourdough. We've been practicing cinnamon rolls, breadsticks.
That's it so far.
Oh
yeah.
For some reason, I thought maybe you did the cookies with it.
Nope, I wanted to do cookies this weekend, but it just didn't happen, so.
Also, we had a compost pile going, and we had a bunch of pumpkins grow from it.
Yep, so that wasn't really like something we planned, but it definitely happened and it was successful, so we're counting that.
And then by our fire pit, after we harvested all of them, she went and was just looking, and she found a bunch of more tomatoes.
Yep, in the fire pit, I was walking back up, and they were still out there bringing the pumpkins up, in the little wagon that we have. And when I walked around the fence, and I walked between the fire pit and the fence, I saw tomatoes. I was like, what the heck? And I looked in there, and there was just tomatoes everywhere in there. And then there's also mint growing in there like crazy. I'm not really sure how the mint got in there, but it is. It's everywhere.
Oh, and then we had a collard start growing by a tree.
Oh yeah,
we had turkeys.
We had thrown scraps into the baby turkeys, and I think it was just, I don't know how they got there, because I don't know that we had any collards out there.
But they weren't doing good. We threw the scraps after we pulled them to the turkeys.
Oh, okay. I was like, was it scraps or was it the plant after we pulled it out?
I don't know how they grew so well.
Yeah. There's some kale growing out in my yard too. I think it's dead now. after those
Oh,
negative
yeah.
30s or whatever. But there was kale growing in my yard too. And that is all of our successes that we sat here and thought of. I'm sure that we could have thought of more, but we thought that that was enough. For one page full was enough. Then we will go to our fails. So first, we're going to start off by talking about there were a lot of variables that went into our last gardening season. Our mom had back surgery, so we had to help her a lot with the house and help with our niece and nephew. I took a week off work. I think it was a week off.
Yeah.
The first week she came back home, I took off to be able to help her. And then our sister also got divorced, so her ex-husband wasn't watching her children anymore, and Cheyenne started watching the children. So having 3 kids that were there constantly, plus the other 2 that already lived there,
And doing school with
and
2
doing
of them.
school with 2 of them, 5 kids is a lot to run after and take care of, especially in the summer. You know, kids really want to be doing stuff in the summer. They didn't really want to be helping us in the garden too much this year. 4 did. 4 liked to come help.
Yeah.
But
He cried when we had to.
he cried when we put the garden to bed. It was hilarious. But yeah, so it was a lot of work for her with the 5 kids, and she wasn't able to do as much in the garden. And then I was just trying to keep up on the weekends when I came over, and they were constantly, B, can we? And it was just a lot. And then mom needing help too. And then at the beginning of the year, the wildfire smoke from Canada reached us, and it was pretty bad. It was significant. So we weren't getting as much sun in the beginning, and our plants were kind of stunted, but not too bad. But then we also had a drought. So between the wildfire smoke and the drought, we had a pretty rough start, and the drought continued. And then when we did finally start getting rain,
Everything took off.
The weeds were off. But we'll get to that later. Okay. October, I fell and I slipped and I caught myself. I didn't actually fall and hurt myself. I slipped, tried to catch myself on the counter like this, put all my weight into it, dislocated it, ended up having surgery. So we didn't get to do any of the fall things that we like to do. We made a couple batches of applesauce, but not as much as we would have liked to, because we weren't able to get out and go pick apples at the U-Pick place we like to go to. We only got to go out there once. So yeah, we didn't get to do that or a lot of the pumpkin stuff this year. Can you read that from there?
Which part are we at?
Here.
Oh. We made a chicken run, but it was way too small after we got chickens and then more turkeys. And the turkeys did not do well this year. Probably started with 6 or 8.
Something like that.
Yeah, probably started with 6 or 8.
You can go back to our video when I talked about how many we ended up having.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember how many it was.
But they kept getting broken legs and just not looking well.
Yeah. And after doing some research, it's some kind of vitamin deficiency.
That's right.
And then their joints start getting all weird, and it's hard for them to recover after that. So they ended up dying.
Yep. We have had inconsistent content. We wanted to stick to once a week, but that did not happen.
Yeah. Just with all the kids and mom's surgery and everything, it was hard.
Our goal was to reach 350 subs, but that also didn't happen. We're only at 237.
And I'm definitely putting that to because of the inconsistent content.
Yeah.
Okay. And then our actual list of fails. I think our biggest fail definitely was the weeding.
Yeah.
And that was just, like we said, with all the kids, it was hard to keep on top of it. With just one person, that's a lot of garden to maintain by yourself. I'm not saying I was doing it completely by myself, because Cheyenne did help, but
We got the kids to do it for 2 weeks. One row.
yeah, one row each for 2 weeks. That was about it. It was just hard to keep up. It was a lot. Our okra,
I blame the kids.
the kids kept running down that aisle and stepping on the okra, so then it was behind, and then it was stunted, and we only got a handful of okra, and it's not
It was
a good
a garden
okra year. Yeah, it was a garden snack. That was all. The corn, again, the kids kept running through that, mainly Mackenzie, and so we put that little fence barrier up around it, but by then, we had to replant some of it, didn't we?
Yeah.
We had to replant some of it, and it was just later in the season, and we didn't get very much harvest from it. So I think that we are done trying to grow corn, because there are so many local farmers around us and local small farm stores and farmers markets, and we can get corn very cheap and very easy around here, and I just don't think it's worth the pain in the butt that we've had trying to grow corn. Interplanting the cucumbers in the peppers, it just did not work. They grew, but our theory that it would suppress weeds, no, it didn't. The reason we thought that it would is because whenever we have cucumbers or squash on the ground, those leaves are really big and they shade out, so then the weeds die. But what we have going on in our garden is nutgrass, and that nutgrass is just really, really persistent, and it's hard to get rid of. And the cucumber leaves just did not shade it out like we thought it would. And then they were so intertwined with the peppers that it was hard to harvest the cucumbers or the peppers anymore at that point, and it was just a pain. So we won't be doing that again. And then our melons. We did have better luck with melons this year than we did previously, but again, we only got a few. So I'm counting that as a fail. They did not do very well. I'm assuming because of inconsistent watering, because of the drought, and they were in the way back of the garden where it's hard to drag the hose out there. So they just did not do very well. Did it? Oh,
Yeah.
hold on. It does that to me too. That's why I hate those chairs.
Our onions didn't get very large. Our biggest probably was 3-inch.
Yeah.
Probably from the watering and drought.
And we had them over in the corner of the garden where the big mulberry tree was shading them out. So they didn't get that large because they were long day onions. They need 12 to 16 hours of sunlight to get large, and they weren't getting that sunlight.
And she tried to can chili beans without my help.
In my defense,
put them in the canner too long.
In my defense, I was on painkillers, and yeah, don't can and be under the influence, guys. Don't do it.
And we did not make enough bell peppers because I don't know. They did better this year, but they didn't. I don't know. They didn't get very large either.
We did.
I just don't think
10. I just don't think we planted enough. We planted more than we did in previous years, and less of the small ones.
Yeah, because those ones don't get ate.
But it still wasn't enough. I have some, I think it's maybe a third of a gallon bag left in the freezer, but I think that's it, unless you guys have some still.
I don't think we do.
Okay,
We'll
yeah,
use them
that's
a lot.
it.
And carrots and brassicas Carrots, she's tried a couple of years now, but they just don't ever get bigger than 2 or 3 inches.
And then sometimes every once in a while we'll get one that's a little bigger, but
then they're super thin and not much carrot.
It's just been a real struggle.
And brassicas,
I
don't even know.
I don't even
They're gonna
know.
grow.
I don't even know what we're doing wrong with brassicas. The carrots, I'm pretty sure I know what I'm doing wrong, but the brassicas, I don't have a damn clue. Okay, that is it for our fails as well. Yep. So that's all of our successes and fails from 2023. And do you have anything you want to add? No, we sat here and talked about it again.
Invest in chickens.
Do you say invest in chickens?
And turkeys. They make great pets.
They do. Turkey. Now that we've had turkeys, because we've never had turkeys before. We had chickens growing up. I like the turkeys' personalities better than I do the chickens. And now I want to get some actual pet turkeys, because these ones were meat birds. And somebody got attached.
That's not what happened at first.
Shy and Dad they both got pretty attached to them, and Dad told me I couldn't. He didn't want me to slaughter them for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we ended up not eating the turkeys. We still have them. Brad, you were right. Yeah, we didn't eat them. I wanted to, but they wouldn't let me.
I said go ahead.
But Dad said no. Dad said no. You're not doing it. It's my turkeys.
Those are my turkeys.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.